Representatives. A lot of things have come out in the last 8 months. Would you support an impeachment hearing?
At the present time, certainly not.
The number one issue that I hear over and over is the need for jobs and hope for the future. Yesterday, the President launched his most recent publicity campaign, tax reform. There are no details except the goal of slashing corporate tax rates from 35% to 15%. Months of private negotiations between Trump's staff and congressional representatives have resulted in zero legislation. Economists agree that there is scant evidence that cutting the tax rate stimulates more investments, boosts wages, and creates jobs. There's widespread recognition that those tax cuts boost corporate profits and benefit the wealthiest Americans. Your constituents are hurting right now, and action is needed. Here's my question. When are you going to stand up for the interests of the 19th District, calling to task the hurtful sound bites that are dividing our country? What specifically do you propose, with substance please, that would serve the 19th Congressional District most successfully in terms of tax reform?
So there's a reason why tax reform hasn't been accomplished since 1986. It's really difficult. And every single provision in the tax code has defenders. Every single provision in the tax code will be very strongly fought for by those that benefit from it. And so what we've got to do is, the President's proposal, you're right, he hasn't introduced legislation, and that's a problem. It is going to come out of the Congress. But the reduction of the corporate tax rate to 15%, I can tell you, is not, in my view, feasible. If we could get it in the mid-20s range, it would be much more likely to happen. But I do think it's important. Another thing that I think is important, and you asked specifically about this district, I'm going to keep fighting to end the New York Medicaid mandate on the local property taxpayers. And here's why. If you add up what the taxpayers, the property taxpayers, pay in the 57 counties outside of New York City, if you add that up, it's about $2.3 billion. That amount is more than the local taxpayers pay for Medicaid costs in the 49 other states combined. This was the single worst thing that Nelson Rockefeller did as governor, imposing this burden on local homeowners, local business property taxpayers. It is driving jobs and businesses out of our state. And I can tell you, again, as I said before, the two things that people say the most about our state is that their kids and grandchildren can't find jobs here, and their property taxes are too high, and when they retire, they're getting the heck out of here. This is something, this Medicaid mandate, many people have just become inured to it. And some of the opponents that the governor rousted about said, oh, well, this will mean you're going to cut Medicaid services for people. Well, here's what the General Accounting Office, the Comptroller General of the United States, and Obama, who, by the way, is a really good guy. We had him in the Budget Committee. And he told us 15% of Medicaid payments are inappropriate, either fraudulent or mistakenly made. 15%. In New York State, that's $9 billion. $9 billion. My proposal would end the $2.3 billion that is imposed on the county property taxes. That's $40 million that comes out of the property taxpayers in Ulster County. It's almost half of what the county legislature and the county executive have to raise in real estate taxes from people who live in Ulster County.
You said you're open to having more of these. You mentioned a number of times you have 400+ meetings.
Yeah.
Does that mean you're going to have more town halls like this? This is a little bit different from the one you had with us.
Yeah, I mean, I've wanted to do, I like the televised town hall that we did with you because actually more people can see it. Even if you had a hall that 500 people to go in, more people can see it if they see it live on television. But I'm open to doing any variety of arrangements. And this was good. The organization came to me recently and said they'd like to sponsor this, and they thought that they could do a town hall that would be productive and would be useful and allow people to ask a question and hear a response, and I was happy to oblige it.
You mentioned Trump won this district by 6 points. His popularity nationwide is pretty low. I think it's the lowest any president has had in the last 60-plus years. Are you concerned personally when you're up for re-election next year that may hurt you?
I'm going to worry about the politics next year, and I've been around this process and running enough elections to know that you never know what kind of political environment you're facing. I'm just going to try to go back to Washington after Labor Day and get some things done for our constituents. I've worked hard the first 8 months, and I'm going to continue to work hard.
You seem to be most on fire tonight, most confident when talking about the Medicaid mandates. That is something you are truly against.
Yeah, it is a disaster for upstate New York. It is basically driving another straw on the camel's back of New York's economy. It's driving jobs and homeowners out of our state. People will tell you one of the main reasons they leave New York is because of the property taxes. Andrew Cuomo doesn't care. He just wants to cast aspersions. But the fact is, we need to fix this, and I'm intent on fixing it.
A lot of talk about civility tonight, but you had people who were yelling and shouting while you were speaking. What do you want to say about that?
I don't mind it. It was harmless.
Did it get under your skin at any point? It seems like maybe sometimes you were affected by it. Was the emotions, did you feel that at all? Or?
No, I felt the only time I felt a little leery is when I spilled my water.
Oh. Congressman, what is the right approach? We've seen some of your fellow Republicans in New York not have any. I don't believe Claudia Tenney has had any. Elise Stefanik has had one. This is now your second. How do you strike that balance between making yourself available and maybe not getting yourself in a politically bad situation?
Well, I'm not worried about the politics. I think this tonight was a great opportunity for people to come out. And look, I understand people aren't going to agree with me all the time. That's just the nature of this system. If everyone agreed, it would be pretty boring. You wouldn't even come here if everyone agreed.
But is it tough striking the right balance? I mean, some have done zero.
No, I think that I'm very comfortable with what we had here tonight, and I look forward to hopefully doing some more in the future.
This